struggling to keep my Bible open because it likes to go shut. It does not like to stay open, so I will make my best attempt to keep it open and keep going fluidly. Saul's conversion. I actually, over a year ago, I had started in Genesis. I thought, well, I should read through the Bible, and at some point, I don't know why the Lord led me in that direction, but he said, I want you to go to Acts, and I want you to go back. Okay, so it's been about a year since I read Saul's conversion. And it was like, the nursery school, or the Sunday school stories you always heard, pictures you'd draw, and you seen him laying down with the light and everything. And I read through it, and it just, like it was any other time, I read through it, and really, nothing stuck. And then when Brian asked about having someone come up from the congregation possibly to give the sermon, I felt that nudge, and then it was confirmed by 2 or 3 people, and I was like, okay. And I'm like, well, all right, you want me to do this, and what's going to be on? Because I don't know. There's all this stuff goes to your head. And he said about Saul's conversion. I'm like, well, what's so special about that? Well, I don't know if any of you know, I run heavy equipment for a living. Well, I've been doing it long enough that you really don't think about doing it anymore. You just kind of do it. And sitting in there, dozer, moving dirt, and something would come to you. He'd just start bringing more and more. I'm like, wow, is this how it works? I mean, it's really cool. But anyway, I'm going to start going down through it here and bring you what the Lord brought to me through the scriptures and through just everyday life. He just show up. First, I want to start with, I guess we'll start reading down through, try to follow my notes here, and then also find my appropriate points to stop. Starting in Acts 9, verse 1. Meanwhile, Saul was still breathing out murderous threats against the Lord's disciples. He went to the high priest and asked him for letters to the synagogue in Damascus, so that if he found any there that belonged to the way, which was what they called the church back then, when it first got started, they called it the way, whether it be men or women, he might take them as prisoners to Jerusalem. This is where Paul was persecuting the church. He was good at it. He was, I guess you'd say for back then, kind of like the Gestapo or the KGB, or he knew what he was doing. And he was a very intelligent man, a very zealous man. He was on his game. He was very approving of it. With the stoning of Stephen back in Acts 7:56. I just want to read that. Look, he said. Make sure I'm in the right spot here. Yeah, that was Stephen. I think I'm in the right spot. Look, he said, I see heaven open and the Son of Man standing at the right hand of God, I think. Yeah, it was Stephen. Anyway, and then it says here basically that Paul, I wrote down the wrong verse, and I apologize. Basically, it was talking about when they threw the clothes, I'm sorry. It's 59. Talks where they drugged Stephen out of the city, and they were starting to stone him. And it says, meanwhile, witnesses laid their clothes at the feet of a young man named Saul. If we skip down a couple verses, it talks where he fell to his knees, and in chapter 8, beginning of chapter 8, and Saul was there giving approval to his death. So he was totally, fine with, he thought that he was doing right. According to the Sanhedrin and the Pharisees and the laws of old Judaism, he was doing the right thing to do. This was, I guess, what we would call heresies. It was wrong. And then we're going to continue on where he is on the way to Damascus. As he neared Damascus on his journey, suddenly a light from heaven flashed around him. He fell to the ground and heard a voice say to him, Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me? Who are you, Lord? Saul asked. I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting. I found that very interesting. He doesn't say, you're persecuting my people. He doesn't say, you're persecuting my church. You're persecuting me. So I think what the Lord's trying to tell us there and what we're seeing, when the world persecutes you as Christians, it's a direct slap on Jesus himself. And that comes through what Brian had talked about in theology. When you were saved, there is what's called justification. Through Jesus Christ, we are allowed to be in the same presence as him. And I think that's what's being shown here. And also, I think you hear a sense of frustration from the Lord. He had said in, I'm trying to find it here, Acts 26, I think it's 26 here, 26:14 I have wrote down, if I have that right. Oh, sorry, down here. Here again is another account that Saul actually gave. It said, Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me? It is hard for you to kick back against the goads. Well, I looked this up what the goads were. I thought it was something else. Actually, what it is, on old draft animals, what they used to do back in that time, of course, you had the harness and everything, and it would go back through to whatever they were pulling. And there was, I'm guessing, no one really knows for sure exactly how it worked, at least from what I looked up. But there's basically, I guess it hangs off the harness, and it goes down past the buttocks. And there's across the back of the legs, there's a board that goes like this, and then there's a nice long pointy stick that sticks forward. It kind of hangs down between their legs. So as they're walking, to get them motivated in the right direction to keep going, because oxen, I don't know if anybody's ever been around cattle or anything, they're not very motivated. There's really not much any kind of drive there. In fact, if you've seen pictures like, say, in Asia and whatnot, usually someone's there with a string or a rope or something, and they're usually pulling along, and their head's kind of straight forward. What the goad was to do as they were walking, it would just sit there and keep poking them in the belly or wherever, just to kind of keep wanting them to go in the right general direction and keep them moving. So what I'm getting from that is, it says when Paul was kicking against the goads, well, think when you kick on that, it would swing back even further and come back in and jab the animal even harder yet. So I said I was going to get that mixed up, Saul and Paul, but who was Saul really fighting against then? Himself. He was only hurting himself. I think for a while, the Lord had been trying to get through to Saul, but because of his head knowledge, and he was entrenched that being zealous like he was entrenched that he was doing the right thing. So finally it comes to the point where the Lord's like, okay, this is what I'm going to have to do. He opened up the heavens, and he basically goes to Saul, and he goes, all right, here I am. You cannot deny me now. Here I am. Saul, you're on the wrong team. You're playing for the wrong team. I need you. He was there to convert him. I think, he was under conviction for a while. And this is the only way that he, obviously it sounded like he was trying to get him through before. Sorry, gotta move papers. Also, I want to read down here through a little further in Acts 9:9. I'm kind of skipping ahead a little bit. Maybe I'll just continue down through. Who are you, Lord? He asked. I may have already read this. I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting. He replied, now get up and go into the city, and you will be told what you must do. The men traveling with Saul stood there and were speechless. They heard the sound, but did not see anyone. Saul got up from the ground, but when he opened his eyes, he could see nothing. So they led him by hand into Damascus. Now here's what I found interesting. For 3 days he was blind. He did not eat or drink anything. there it is again, 3 days. Brian taught us from Jonah before Easter about how Jonah was in the belly of a fish for 3 days. And at Easter, obviously, you have the crucifixion, and Jesus is dead for 3 days, and he rose on the third day. Now you have Saul, for 3 days, did not eat, drink, or could not see. Now, it seems funny that with Jonah, God had to make the correction. He had to correct Jonah's behavior. With Saul, God had to make the correction with Saul to convert him. But with Christ, he is the correction for all of mankind. It's just, I don't know, something that come to me, and it seems funny. It's pre-crucifixion and then post. And then also I want to talk about Ananias' obedience. In Damascus there was a disciple named Ananias. The Lord called to him in a vision, "Ananias." "Yes, Lord," he answered. The Lord told him, "Go into the house of Judas on the straight street, and ask for a man from Tarsus named Saul, for he is praying. In a vision he has seen a man named Ananias come and place his hands on him to restore his sight." "Lord," Ananias answered, "I have heard many reports about this man, all the harm he has done to the saints in Jerusalem. And he has come here with the authority from the chief priests to arrest all who call on your name." But then the Lord said to Ananias, "Go. This man is a chosen instrument to carry my name before the Gentiles and their kings, before the people of Israel. I will show you how much he must suffer for my name." Then Ananias went to the house and entered in, placing his hands on Saul, and said, Brother Saul, the Lord Jesus, who appeared to you on the road as you are coming here, has sent me so that you may come see again and be filled with the Holy Spirit. Immediately something like scales fell from Saul's eyes, and he could see again. He got up, was baptized, and after taking some food, he regained his strength. Now there is faith. He just approved not so long ago Stephen's stoning, and I'm pretty sure some other deaths as well, and prison and whatnot like that. I don't know, it'd be like, I guess like being over in the Middle East, and say like Jihadi John or whatever, this guy that was going over beheading people and stuff, that if he knew you were a Christian, to their religion, that's wrong. And all of a sudden the Lord tells you, you need to go pray with this guy. Well, he was just killing a whole bunch of anybody that said they were a Christian. I don't know, that's a lot of faith right there. Going to somebody that you know was persecuting all your people. That's pretty much the end of my sermon right there. Still learning, like I said, but I guess we'll switch over to singing praises.